So in today's video, I am going to completely break down a $25,000 budget for you. Exactly what that gets you, how much you should be spending in each category, what kind of vendors that you can expect to hire, and stuff like that. Hey blushing brides, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kyle James, and today we are going to talk about budget, specifically a $25,000 budget and what that gets you. So let's get started. I really want to talk about this because in real life, $25,000 is actually a lot of money. But in wedding world, it disappears really fast if you aren't paying attention. Especially because brides think, oh, that's plenty of money, that's tons of money. So they don't really pay attention to it and they just start spending, and then all of a sudden they look around and they've doubled or tripled their original budget. I'm gonna put my budget breakdown up on the screen. This is the breakdown that I've used for all of the weddings I've planned, and it's worked pretty well. So I would use it as a base for your budget, and then you can make adjustments as you see fit. Sometimes you might not want to spend as much in a category, or you might want to spend a lot more. So after you completely go through and fill it in, then you can make adjustments as you see fit. I will also include a link for you to download this worksheet below so that you can print it off and work your own budget and work your own numbers and have it in front of you as you go through the planning process. Okay, so here we go. The first category is planning and coordination. So this category covers a wedding planner and or your day of coordination. So I've allocated 5% of the total wedding budget to this category, so that gives us $1,250 to work with on our $25,000 budget. $1,250 is not going to get you a full service planner, at least not like a functional one. So if you know that you don't want to be involved in the planning process as much and you really want a full service planner, then you're definitely going to need to increase this, probably to about $5,000 if you have a $25,000 budget. Just keep in mind that you are going to have to pull that money from other areas and maybe do less decor, less floral, or less fancy of a venue if you really want the wedding planner. But this can be totally worth it to some people, especially if you're super busy and you're just not into being super hands-on in the planning process. I allocate only 5% of the budget because I think it's totally possible to plan your own wedding. The only thing that is extremely vital is that you use this money to hire a day of coordinator. You do not want to skip out on that. That is one of the most important parts of planning your big day. But like I said, you will be planning everything yourself on this budget. So just be ready to put in the work. Everything with wedding planning is kind of a trade of either time or money. So if you don't have the time, then you're gonna have to pay a little bit more money. And vice versa, if you do have the time, then you can totally make things work on a lower budget. The next category is venues, and I have allocated 15% to this. So that puts us at $3,750. So I've planned weddings in San Diego and Denver. So this is gonna be like mid to low budget range for wedding venues. So you are going to really have to do your research to be able to find something really great in this budget, but it's definitely doable. So unless you're super religious and you really want to get married in a church, I highly recommend just choosing kind of one all-inclusive venue where you can hold your ceremony, cocktail hour, and reception. It makes it easier on you, it makes it easier on your guests, and it definitely makes it easier on your budget. This is the category that you really want to pay attention to, especially if you really need to stick to your budget. If you blow your budget in the venue category, you are most likely going to blow the rest of your budgets as well. I know a lot of brides think, oh, we can go ahead and spend 10 grand on this venue because we love it so much and we'll just cut costs everywhere else. But it doesn't actually work like that in most cases. Usually venues have a catering company that you either have to work with, like you have to do your catering through them, or they have a list of vendors that you can pick from. And if you do choose the higher end venue, then you're going to be working with higher end caterers. So that automatically puts your catering tab a lot higher as well. And then a lot of times you need to either hire their bar or work with a specific bar company as well. And then that's another area that you will completely blow your budget if you go out of your budget on your venue. It is extremely important to really stick to your budget in this category, and be sure that you're only touring venues that are within budget. Send them an email before you go and get a list of their pricing. I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but you definitely want to find a venue that already has at least tables and chairs that you can use, if not like linens and other rentals, to save you money there. So an all-inclusive venue at $37.50, where you can have your ceremony, your cocktail hour, and your reception, and it has tables and chairs. That's what you're looking for on this budget. The next category is bridal attire, so this is your dress. And I've allocated 5% of your budget, which is $1,250. So as most of you probably know, that is not a lot in the wedding gown world, so you are going to have to be conscious while you're shopping. It's also important to note that this also includes your alterations. So do not go trying on $1,250 dresses, because that is going to put you way over budget once you add in your alterations. If you can find a dress for like $850 to $1,000, then you will be golden. That'll be perfect in this range. But like I said, that is a little bit on the lower end of the bridal gown spectrum. Totally doable. There's still tons of choices. You just need to be conscious of going to the right places to try on dresses and being very specific about your budget when you are trying on dresses. Don't try on that $10,000 dress. I promise you, you will regret it. The next category I have is Bridal Beauty. So this is your hair and makeup, and we've allocated 2% of your budget to this, so that's $500, and that should be plenty for hair and makeup for yourself, and that should include tip as well. This is not going to be a big enough budget for you to pay for your girls to get their hair and makeup done, or your mom or anybody else to get their hair and makeup done, but it's totally normal for you to ask them to pay for their own hair and makeup if they are going to get it done by your hair and makeup team. The next category is groom's attire, and we have 2% for that as well, so that puts us at $500, which should be plenty for your groom to either buy a nice new suit or to rent something. The next category, and this is the biggest category in your budget, and that is the food, the catering. So we have 20% of your budget allocated here, which gives you $5,000. With the catering budget, you are going to want to break that down by your head count. So if you have like an average head count of about 100 people or so, this is going to give you $50 per person on your catering. So like I mentioned before, this is something you definitely need to ask your venue about before you book your venue. See if they have if you have to use their catering, or if they have a specific catering company that they request that you use. So divide your total catering budget by your estimated head count, and this will give you your dollars per person on catering. In wedding world, $50 per person is not a ton, but it is a pretty average budget, so you can definitely find some great people to cater your wedding on this budget, especially if your venue does not require you to use a specific caterer. This also includes like your catering service fee and your tip and everything. So when you are asking for your quotes from your catering company, be sure you tell them to include that as part of the $50 per person. I'm saying $50 per person because if you had a 100 person head count, but make sure that they include everything, all the service fees and everything in their quote for you, to make sure that it's within your budget. The next category is the bar and beverages, and I have 7% of your budget allocated to this. So that puts us at $1,750. On this budget, that is not going to be an open bar, full open bar all night in most places. You might be able to make that work somehow if you're doing your own alcohol, but most venues don't allow you to do that, so I would not get your hopes up for that. There is a chance though, you can always ask. But it's totally normal to just do beer and wine, or you could do like a full open bar at cocktail hour and just go down to beer and wine after dinner. There's tons of different options to be able to make this fit in your budget. The other option is doing beer and wine plus signature cocktails. I think that this is actually a better way to do it anyway, doing just beer and wine or beer and wine plus signature cocktails, because you don't want people getting too crazy anyway. So I think that it actually makes it more fun to do it this way and doable on a $25,000 budget. The next piece is the cake. I've allocated only 1% of the budget to this, so that puts you at $250. Honestly, the cake does not get eaten at most weddings I've been to. The only time I've actually seen the cake like really get eaten is when we did a cake from Nothing But Cakes, so we didn't spend like a fortune, and it was amazing. It was the most delicious wedding cake, and everybody actually ate it, especially when they heard that it was from there. So yeah, I wouldn't, especially on this budget, I wouldn't go too crazy on your cake. So like I said, the actual cake usually doesn't get eaten, so you can totally go and just do a really small cake for cutting and for photos, and then you could do other desserts if you wanted, or you can just do like a Sam's Club cake. Do something like super cheap, just get a white cake and then have your florist add the flowers to it to go with your wedding, and it will still look really beautiful. The next budget category we have is rentals and decor. So I've allocated 5% of the budget to this, which is $1,250. So this budget includes your tables and chairs and linens and tableware and everything. This includes everything. So at $1,250, that is not very much, especially if you have to rent tables. So I highly, highly, highly recommend to do everything in your power to find a venue that already has tables, so that doesn't completely eat up your decor budget. A lot of them actually have like the white linens as well, so I suggest on this budget using those white tablecloths, and then you can rent the different colored napkins and stuff from a rental company to add the pop of color that you may want. Like napkins and chargers and stuff like that will add a ton of personality to the table. So if you find like an incredible lush tablescape that has all of this really pretty stuff, I highly recommend just doing that for the head table or for the sweetheart table, and you could rent the special chairs, rent the special tables, everything, and have that just for the head table, and then just use the venue stuff for the other tables, and have the smaller centerpieces, and then just have like the white linens with the colored napkins and everything, because people aren't going to notice, especially if your head table is like really gorgeous and stuff. That's where their focus will be, that's where all the photos will be. So don't worry about like going all out on every single table. Just focus on the head table and the sweetheart table. The next budget category is the flowers, and I put 5% here, so that's another $1,250. The average like full service florist to like really get a full wedding floral probably starts at like $2,500. So there are options though that you can totally have beautiful floral on this budget. There are a lot of DIY floral companies online now, like Bluminous I've used a couple times and I love them. The Books company, they are really great as well. These companies allow you to get that full floral package but on a smaller budget. You're just going to have to put them together. I've had a lot of girls order their centerpieces and bridesmaids bouquets and their bridal bouquet and everything through one of these DIY companies, and then just hire a florist to do your ceremony and do your arch. That way you know that part, that's like the hardest part. That part is done by a pro, and then you can also use those ceremony flowers, bring them in and use them at the reception. I think spending a ton on ceremony flowers and then not reusing them, no matter what your budget is ridiculous, because most times the ceremony is like 20 minutes or something, and you just don't get that much use out of them. So it's super important to reuse those flowers the best that you can between the ceremony and the reception. Also be sure that you are using your bridesmaids bouquets as centerpieces, because you're spending a lot on those, and after pictures and stuff, they're usually just going to be like thrown off to the side. So you can totally do empty vases on the guest tables and just have your girls go pop their flowers in there after pictures. The next category is capturing the memories, which is going to be your photographer and videographer. We have 10% allocated here, so that puts us at $2,500. On this budget, I would recommend cutting out the videographer and just hiring a great photographer. I think that if you try to split this between the two, you're going to get an average photographer and an average videographer, and neither of them are going to be that great. And personally, I think that having like really great photos, you can totally get kind of the same experience and have the same memories as if you had a video. The next category is the entertainment. So this is your band or DJ. I put 10% here as well, so that puts you at $2,500. You should be able to find a really great DJ for this price in most places. And you might also actually be able to get a band. It's probably not going to be a super great, super popular band. Bands tend to be more expensive, but honestly, I think they're a lot more of a pain to work with than a DJ. If you really want some live music or something, you might be able to hire someone maybe just for cocktail hour or just for a certain portion of the night, but I wouldn't say it's required. Get an awesome DJ and that will be perfect on this budget. The next category is the stationery, and we have 2% there, so that's $500 for your invitations. So this budget is going to be plenty if you just shop online, find some cute ones on like Etsy or even like Minted or all of these other wedding invitation companies. You can find something really great that will totally fit your theme and look beautiful for this price. This budget is not going to cover if you want to like hire a graphic designer and do this super custom thing. You might be able to kind of DIY something if you really want something more extravagant, but I highly recommend just going with something online. You can calculate your invitation budget by dividing this by your number of parties. You don't need to divide it by your total number of guests because you're not sending each guest an invitation. Your save the dates will come out of this budget as well. You'll probably just want to do some simple save the date postcards so that you can spend most of this budget towards your invitations. The next budget is the efficient. I put in 1% for this, so that's $250. Which will totally pay for a normal wedding officiant if you need to hire someone. If you are just having a friend or a family member officiate your wedding, then you will still want to get them like a nice gift or something as a thank you. The next budget is the transportation. So we have 2% for that, which is $500. That should cover a party bus for like the bridal party. And then like maybe some sort of car for you if you want a special getaway car. Most of the time I see people just doing the party bus for the bridal party, and then guests are kind of on their own, especially on this budget. If you do have a lot of guests coming in from out of town, a lot of hotels will offer this service when you book your hotel block with them. So especially on this budget, you do not want to be paying for your guest transportation as well. So if you can find a hotel that offers this service, that would be great. Your next budget is your favors and your gifts, and that is 2% as well, so that's $500. You'll want to divide this by your total head count so that you know how much you have per guest. I wouldn't go too crazy on the favors. There's been so many times I've seen where people put a lot of money and time and effort into the favors, and then half the time people don't even take them with them. So don't stress yourself out about this too much. My biggest advice on favors is to keep it simple. You will thank yourself later, I promise, especially if you're like, you don't want this giant DIY project that you have to finish like the week before your wedding. Kind of looming, and then nobody end up taking the favor. So yeah, keep it simple. $500 is plenty for your wedding favors. The next budget is your wedding accommodations, and we have 1% for that, so that's $250, and that should be plenty for a hotel room for you and your groom. You might want to ask the hotel if they have any like honeymoon suites or any special deals. A lot of times if you book your hotel block through the hotel, they'll give you your room for free, or give you an upgrade at least for free. So be sure you ask your hotels that when you're looking for where you're going to book your hotel block, because if you can get this for free, then that's an extra $250 that you can spend elsewhere. The next category is the rehearsal dinner and celebrations, and I did not allocate any budget to this. Traditionally, the groom's family will host and pay for the rehearsal dinner. If that's not the case for you, then you will need to pull some budget out of your other categories to get some budget into here. Also, you might want to include like your bridal shower and stuff like that. So on this budget, I would say like keep it simple on the celebrations, as simple as you can, and then also ask for other people to host and really try to get those done on the cheap. Your next category is miscellaneous, and that is 5% of the budget. This one is not optional. You definitely need to allocate this extra 5%, put it off to the side, just so that you have something to dip into if you really love something and it's over budget, that you have somewhere to go. Pretty much every couple ever goes over budget on something, so having this little miscellaneous thing off to the side is super helpful. And then if you don't use it, that's really awesome, because then you have an extra like $5,000 to spend on something else. So definitely put this off to the side at the beginning and try not to use it, but just know that it is there if you do need it. And then I also have the honeymoon on here. Typically people don't include this in their wedding budget, because the couple usually just kind of pays for that on their own. If you do not have the means to do that and your honeymoon is definitely coming out of your wedding budget, then you'll need to decide where you're going to pull the money from to be able to do that. So that's totally up to you. So as you can see, $25,000 is not a ton of money in wedding land, unfortunately, but it is plenty, especially if you're just being really mindful and conscious about how you're spending your money and really tracking your budget and allocating out to those different categories and just paying attention. Then you will be great on this budget. You can totally do it and have a beautiful day. But if you just dive in and start spending and not really tracking stuff, you're probably going to end up closer to 40 or 50 grand. I've seen it happen multiple times. So I highly recommend just grabbing that download. There's a free download. The link is below, and just working through your budget and deciding if that's going to be enough, or consciously deciding if you need to add more money and figuring out how you're going to do that. I think the budget is only stressful if you're like ignoring it and kind of blowing it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with your bride friends. Also, be sure that you are subscribed. I have some awesome wedding planning content coming up, so be sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss that, and we'll see you next time. Happy planning!